I discovered my passion for candle making on the worst night of my life. The power had flickered out in my tiny studio apartment. Another billing error, another threat of disconnection, and sleep felt miles away. In the pitch black, I fumbled for a match, found a half-burned tea light in a drawer, and watched its pale flame dance. I realized then that light itself could be crafted, a fragile rebellion against the dark. By morning, I had raided the dollar store for wax flakes, essential oils, and a handful of tin cans. I melted, mixed, poured, and watched my first candle set, pale yellow and lumpy, its scent an awkward mash of lavender and lemon. I called it Dawn's First Promise. It smelled like hope by the second sniff. 2 months later, I stood at the Riverdale Craft Fair, a fold-out table stacked with my candles in mismatched tins. Dawn's First Promise, Midnight Reverie, Lavender and Sage, Evergreen Whisper, Eucalyptus and Pine. Under the canopy of string lights borrowed from a neighbor, I arranged them like trophies, each label handwritten, each wick hand-trimmed. A buzz of conversation drifted over from the booth next door, where mass-produced candles glowed in crystal jars, labels sleek and uniform. Luxe aromas, $35 each. Beside me, my candles bore price tags reading $10. A gaggle of teenage girls in silk scarves strolled by, ducking their heads. "He's selling candles," one whispered. "In soup cans." I kept my smile polite, but inside my chest tightened. I'd seen my mom's pursed lips at my last parent-teacher conference. "Why can't you make something normal?" And the echo of that doubt still clung to me. A voice interrupted my thoughts. "Excuse me," I turned. A middle-aged man, crisp shirt tucked into dockers, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. He picked up Midnight Reverie, sniffed warily, then blinked. "This smells like a spa." He studied the tin. $10, that's affordable. He set it back. "Thanks." He walked off. I closed my eyes. Spa? That was new. At home that night, I emptied the dollar store bottles onto my desk. Rosemary, bergamot, cedarwood, orange peel. I sketched label designs in my notebook, simple icons, no handwriting this time. I watched YouTube videos on branding. I texted my friend Nina. "Me, spa? They think my candles smell like spas?" "Nina, that's a compliment." "Me," but they laughed at the tins. "Soup cans." "Nina, soup cans are vintage. You're a pioneer. Embrace it." I exhaled. Pioneer? The word tasted sweet and strange. 3 weeks later, I had a website, a little curated marketplace for local artisans, called Gleam and Glow. Not just candles, soaps, pottery, woven scarves. I wanted to champion the overlooked, the up-and-coming. I launched with 6 makers, including myself. I wrote my about page in the third person, speaking of my dream to illuminate undiscovered talents, as though I were a luminary, not a broke candle crafter. On launch day, I anxiously refreshed metrics. First sale, a set of ceramic coasters from my friend Jorge. Then a handmade soap bar from Marisol. Then my very own Dawn's First Promise, selling for $30, the same price as those crystal jar candles at the fair. My hands shook when I saw it. Triple price. The buyer's name, M. Shepard. Martin Shepard. Soup can scoffer spa, scoffer, Martin. The man who dismissed me at the craft fair. He'd bought my candle at triple my price, through my curated site. I stared at the order confirmation. Order #78. Dawn's First Promise. Buyer Martin Shepard. Price $30. Date 11:15 a.m. I slammed my laptop shut and sank into my desk chair. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to cry. Did he know he was helping me? Did he care? Why pay so much when he could have walked next door? I texted Nina again, frantic. "Me, so, remember Martin from the fair? He just bought my candle at triple price." "Nina, that's epic." "Me or creepy?" "Nina, or both." "Call him." I hesitated. Could I really call the man who mocked my work? But curiosity burned. I pressed dial. "Martin Shepard," he answered. Voice clipped. "Hello, Mr. Shepard. It's Rebecca Nguyen, from the craft fair." My heart pounded. "I saw you purchase Dawn's First Promise on Gleam and Glow." The line went quiet. "You run that site?" he said, surprise in his tone. "I do," I said, voice steadier now. "I curate local artisans." I swallowed. "I noticed you paid $30. My retail price is $10, so thank you." Another pause. Then he sighed. "Look, Rebecca, I owe you an apology. When I saw you at the fair, I was showing off for my daughter, Evelyn. She loves candles. I thought, I'll teach her a lesson about handmade. I didn't expect them to be good." He cleared his throat. Your candles, they're exceptional. Spa-worthy, even. I exhaled. That's kind of you to say. He added quietly. I paid triple because, well, you deserve it. My chest tightened. Thank you for the purchase, and for calling. I, I'd like to send you and Evelyn a sampler. No charge. As a gesture. There was a sound like a relieved breath. That'd be great. Thank you, Rebecca. I smiled. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. We hung up, and I leaned back. The lines between mockery and appreciation felt so thin, like the wax I poured. The next afternoon, Evelyn Shepherd arrived at my door, 6 years old, pink backpack slung over one shoulder, curls bouncing. Her father hovered behind her. Hi, Evelyn, I said, kneeling. I'm Rebecca. This is my studio. The cramped room smelled of wax and essential oils. Evelyn's eyes went wide. Are these candles? She whispered. Like the ones I saw? I nodded. I make them by hand. I lifted a tray of tiny votives. Would you like to smell one? She nodded. I held up a sample, Midnight Reverie. She inhaled deeply. It's like bedtime stories, she said, eyes shining. Her father leaned in, amusement soft on his face. She says your candles are like bedtime stories. Are you going to tell her a story now, Miss Nguyen? I grinned. Sure, once upon a time, and began weaving a tale of a little girl who traveled through a glass forest, lit by candles that whispered secrets of hope. Evelyn sat cross-legged on the floor, enraptured. Her father watched from the doorway, pride and maybe a bit of wonder on his face. That night, I updated my site's featured section, a new category called Shepherd's Choice with Evelyn's snapshots next to her favorite votives. I wrote, inspired by Evelyn Shepherd's poetic vision, bedtime stories votives, hand-poured with blends of lavender and vanilla, to turn your evenings into fairy's tale nights. I set the price at $15, an apology discount for Martin and Evelyn, and I sent them a private coupon code. The next morning, orders poured in 10 bedtime stories for the Shepherd household they'd bought in bulk, plus 15 more from new buyers citing Evelyn's recommendation. My conversion rate tripled. My site's traffic spiked. But more than revenue, I felt something I'd never felt at a craft fair: genuine connection. A child's delight, a father's contrition, my craft affirmed. In the weeks that followed, Martin texted occasionally, loved the sampler. Evelyn sleeps with her vase of votives every night. I'd reply with new scent ideas and envy her scent imagination: moonlit marshmallow, pumpkin lantern, seaside driftwood. He'd challenge me, try her idea, if you dare. I'd pour small test batches, mass email my curated members, and watch them vanish from my workshop shelf. Pumpkin lantern, seaside driftwood. I found myself, once mocked as overheated, now riding a wave of creativity, fueled by a little girl's wonder. My handcrafted candles, once laughed at, were now cherished, and at triple price, because people believed in their magic. One Sunday afternoon, Evelyn and I hosted a candle-making workshop in my studio. A small group of kids from her school kneaded dough of wax into molds, mixed food coloring soap dyes into pastel ripples. The room smelled of sugar cookies and citrus. Parents milled around, sipping coffee and snapping photos. Martin hovered off to the side, beaming with pride. At the end, each child held a votive they'd made themselves. Evelyn turned to me, face pink and glowing. This is the best day ever. I wrapped her in a hug. You're the best teacher ever. She giggled. And you're the best candle woman ever. Later, as I cleaned up, I looked at the scattered tins on the floor, the drips of hardened wax, the pastel puddles on newspaper. That mess of creation, once mocked, now brimmed with life. My gaze drifted to the studio window, where the afternoon sun struck each tin, making them gleam like tiny suns. I realized then, people can laugh at your craft when they don't yet see its purpose. But once you illuminate a corner of their hearts, once you teach them to breathe in the light, they'll gladly pay triple to carry that glow home. And perhaps, just perhaps, they'll learn that what once seemed overheated is simply the warmth of shared wonder, poured and kindled by human hands. I never imagined that my little experiment, turning soup cans into candle vessels, would become a full-blown community obsession. Yet here I was, 2 months after opening Gleam and Glow, stepping into my own pop-up shop at the downtown artisan market, glass jars, gleaming tins lined in perfect rows, and an earnest line of customers waiting to share their stories. Every face I saw, every question asked, reminded me how fragile dreams can ignite into something real. But growth breeds new fires, and sometimes wildfires. That Saturday, the pop-up's first official weekend, started like a dream. The founder of Candle Quarterly magazine showed up, camera crew in tow, eager for an on-camera interview about the reconstructed chic of soup can couture. I demonstrated the blend process for pumpkin lantern, my new fall scent, while the reporter sniffed appreciatively. "Look at that glow," he said, peering into the flickering flame. His cameraman nabbed close-ups of the molten wax. "Reese, your work is turning heads." I laughed, cheeks tingling. It's all about telling stories in scent. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Nina. "Check your site." I excused myself, stepped behind a fabric curtain, and logged in. My heart froze. The Gleam and Glow homepage had been replaced by a splash page that read "New, Reese's Lighthouse Collection, now available at Golden Ember for $60. Beneath, images of my signature soup can candles, now mounted in sleek brass holders, the exact same wax blends, the same hand-carved labels, only more polished, and the price 6 times my original. I stared at the screen, disbelief turning to rage. Golden Ember was a high-end competitor in the artisan scene, known for silk-scented candles and vats of local honey in every jar. They'd carried a handful of my earliest prototypes at the fair, dismissing them then, but now they'd lifted my entire collection, repackaged it, and slapped their brand across my designs. My phone rang. It was Martin. "Reese, sorry, I missed your call. You okay?" His voice was calm, but I could hear the falling market in my own breath. "They Golden Ember, they just stole my designs and are selling them at $60. I swallowed back a sob. "What do I do?" He didn't answer, and I realized he'd never been through this kind of creative theft. I hadn't either. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "I'll call my lawyer. I'm on my way," he said. "Hang tight." The rest of the afternoon blurred. I tried to continue selling at the pop-up, tried to smile at customers, but my mind churned. How many unsuspecting shoppers would buy counterfeit Reese candles and think them the real deal? How many would call Gleam and Glow and ask why our candles were suddenly $60? What would this do to my brand? By evening, Martin arrived with our lawyer, Simone Lowe, a fierce advocate with a soft spot for creative entrepreneurs. We huddled in a cafe with laptops and laptops of evidence, screenshots of the Golden Ember site, side-by-side comparisons of labels, timestamps of my original listings. Simone's eyes narrowed. "They've infringed on your intellectual property, trade dress, design, even your label art, which you've copyrighted. We can file a takedown notice under the DMCA and pursue damages." She handed me a pen. "Sign here, authorize me to send a cease and desist." My hands trembled, but I signed. The legal paperwork felt like a bandage over a wound that needed stitches. Simone sent the letter that night. Meanwhile, I scheduled an emergency newsletter. Protect your glow, beware imitations, alerting my subscribers and probing social channels for more feedback. 2 days later, Golden Ember's website was down temporarily, they claimed, for maintenance. But whispers spread through the artisan community like glimmering sparks. Boutique owners who'd stocked their counterfeit candles began pulling them from shelves. Local journalists sniffed out the scandal, tweeting headlines like "Candle brand caught in wax heist." One evening, I sat in my studio surrounded by half-burned votives when my phone pinged with a text at Artisan Daily. "We'd love your statement on the Golden Ember takedown. Can you comment?" I typed, "I'm grateful to the artisan community for rallying against design theft. This is not just about candles, but respect for creative labor. When we honor each other's work, we all shine brighter." I hit send, then poured a small glass of wine and raised it to my computer screen. By the following week, Gleam and Glow was trending on the regional arts board. Sales spiked, not just for Dawn's First Promise or Pumpkin Lantern, but for my Shepherd's Choice Bedtime Stories collection that Emily had inspired. Buyers posted selfies with my soup, cantins, tags reading #SoupCanChick flooding Instagram. Meanwhile, Golden Ember issued a public apology, claiming unintentional overlap in design inspiration and offering refunds. But the damage was done, their credibility cracked, and consumers gravitated toward my authentic story: a single mother, a daughter, a community rallied around hand-poured light. Yet even in victory, new challenges emerged. I found an email in my inbox. "Dear Miss, Nguyen, I represent the City Arts Commission. In light of recent events, we'd like to feature your story in our upcoming Artisan Spotlight publication. We're also considering commissioning you to lead a community workshop on protecting creative work. Please let me know if you're interested. Clara Winslow, editor. My eyes stung. The same city body whose forms I'd once dreaded filling now wanted my expertise. I replied, "Thank you, Miss Winslow. I'd be honored to contribute. Let's set up a meeting." That meeting took place in a sunlit conference room above City Hall. Clara, a vivacious editor with coral lipstick, and two commissioners sat across from me. They grilled me gently. How did you build your brand to withstand such a public theft? What legal measures proved most effective? And most importantly, how can we help other artisans protect their work? I spoke from the heart. Build community first. Tell your story, register your design rights, copyright labels, trademark unique names. But above all, nurture relationships. When Gold and Ember copied me, my community supported me because they knew me, knew my process, and knew that each candle carried more than wax, it carried my story. Clara jotted notes furiously. We'll dedicate an entire section to your workshop. Title: Light the Way, Safeguarding Your Creative Spark. I smiled, adrenaline sparking in my veins. Let's make it hands-on DIY sessions, where artisans learn to register copyrights and trademarks, plus brand-building exercises. They agreed. The workshop was scheduled for 2 months later, in the very community center where I'd first met Martin. I pictured the room filled with makers, potters, knitters, each determined to protect their craft. That evening, I returned to the studio to find a box waiting on my workbench. I opened it to discover a limited edition run of new candle tins, lush emerald green with gold lettering, stamped Gleam and Glow X Riverdale Arts Commission. Inside each tin lay a mini pamphlet. Your Creative Rights, a starter guide, printed in bold, accessible language. I sighed with relief. We'd won. But more than that, we'd turned a moment of theft into a catalyst for communal empowerment. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Martin: dinner tonight? Evelyn craves mac and cheese. I smiled. He'd been my rock through the ordeal, believing in me when I wavered. I texted back, "See you at 7, and bring Evelyn." At the dinner table that night, Emily perched on a booster chair between Martin and me. She waved an unfinished breadstick at me. "Mom, you're like a superhero. People stole your candles, and you taught them a lesson." I ruffled her hair. "More like an artisan in armor." Martin nodded. "My artisan in armor." He lifted his glass. "To Reese, Emily, and the light we create together." We clinked his wine, my sparkling water, and in that moment, I realized my journey had come full circle, from nervous flickers and soup cans to a roaring blaze of community support. They'd laughed at my handmade candles, then they bought them at triple price. Then they rallied behind me when I needed them. And now we stood together, artisan, skeptic, turned ally, and the child who lit the spark. But tomorrow the story continues. New scents to craft, new artisans to champion, new workshops to lead under the aegis of the Arts Commission. The studio calls, its shelves gleaming with possibility. Because once you learn to pour light, there's no going back to darkness. And so, we burn on.